having me, Holly. Yes,
Yeah.
Holly and I did meet through a mutual acquaintance, and I will tell you more about that story as things unfold. I understand that you are in various realms of writing, whether it's just starting or very advanced. I have thought a lot about what to share with you, and at the risk of overwhelm, I really wanted to give you everything that I thought would be helpful, because we only have 60 minutes together. Is that right, Holly? About 60 minutes?
We can go to 90. We've got all the
Okay.
time that you have. So
Okay, great.
we
I
just
definitely want to leave some time for questions. So we can do that. And Holly's told us, again, housekeeping, if you want to put questions in the chat, that's great. And we will get to all the things that we can get to. I'm happy to be here with you. My time is your time. Thanks for having me. So you heard a little bit about me. Let me make sure I know how to use this fabulous technology system. Can we have a yay for technology? We all love it, right? There we go. I think I found her. There she is. Okay. So I thought about what is it that you may want? What as a musical writer would be interesting to you? And perhaps this is it. Perhaps you want to see your name in lights. Maybe that's what wakes you up in the morning when you get on the computer or keyboard, or late at night, or when you're voice texting or on your phone, or maybe this is what drives you. You really want to see your name in the big lights. Who would not want that? I think that's a fabulous goal. Or maybe you want this. I mean, who wouldn't want piles of money? I think that sounds like we could do a lot of good with a lot of piles of money. So maybe that's your goal. But the more I work with writers, the more I get to know writers as a producer, the more I realize that what musical writers really want is this. Writers want what they write to be read or to be heard. And this comes from Deborah Lee Luskin, and she's an award-winning author of Into the Wilderness. And as I was researching, like how, trying to get into the minds of a writer, this is what stuck out to me. This is what I think we all want, is a message to be shared, a character, a storyline, a plot point, like a pivotal part of how we see the world to be shared with others. I think that's a really wonderful goal. What I want for you is this. And let's see if we can make this work, friends. This is what I want for you. If you have your phone with you, I'd like you to grab your phone and click on your timer, because I'm going to ask you to time something. So this moment happened in September, and it was the reopening of Broadway. This is the first show that I saw when Broadway reopened. In fact, I'll point out, if you look closely, you can see me in the crowd. I'm wearing a green Persephone green. This is what I want for you. Let's see if we can hear it. Can you guys hear the sound? Can you hear it? You can't hear the sound. Let's see if I can do it this way. Let's screen share here. Can you hear this? Still no? Okay. You can at least see the video. Can you see the video? If you had your timer on, I want you to think about being in the house at the reopening of Hadestown. Look at all of those people. Is that amazing? Can you, even without hearing it, like start to feel the electricity that's in the air? I bought a flight from Salt Lake to New York. I was sitting there in a great orchestra street next to two New Yorkers, because at that time, of course, we're not coming back, but the locals were there, and they were there in force. And we were here to see this reopening moment. I want you to imagine what it was like to have the actors back on stage performing for their first audience. Look at Andre DeShields. Look, he just holds us as an audience in the palm of his hand. He is a master. He pulls his jacket back and the crowd goes wild. Just watch and see how, there it is, friends, there it is. He is holding us in his hands. We stand and we applaud for second upon minute. This, my friends, this is what I want for you. I want for you to find a place where your story, where your words, where your characters are seen and received with such enthusiasm that you can feel the electricity in the air. I want this moment where, yes, we're all back. Now, if you watch in just a few minutes, you'll see my cameo, the green shirt. Hold on, bottom right-hand corner of your screen. It's coming up. There she is. There she is. It was such an electric moment. And that, my friends, is what I want for you, to have that feeling of your words, your musical, your characters being read and received by an enthusiastic audience. This actually, we applauded for over 3 minutes, if your clocks are still going. He welcomes everybody in, and then with the greatest of grace, he cues the musicians and the show goes on. That is what I hope we can talk about today. It's starting with the end in mind and reverse engineering that. Okay, here's our agenda. We're going to talk about how to find the perfect producer for your project. We're going to talk about 3 keys to getting your work produced. Think about it as self-producing. And we're going to talk about the top 5 things investors look for. This is fundraising. Then we'll have a question and answer, and I do have a gift for you. So stay around because I love gifts. I'm a great gift giver. At least that's what I've been told. So here we go. First things, how to find the perfect producer for you. Now, the key word in this is the perfect producer for your project, recognizing that your project is going to be unique from somebody else. I consider myself the PG producer, and I look at materials through that lens. But let's talk about how you find the perfect producer for you. But first, why theater? I believe that theater uplifts and strengthens. I believe specifically that theater is best enjoyed with a young person on one side and a grandparent on the other. This intergenerational experience is what motivates me every day. It strengthens families like nothing else. You talk about the show before the show, during the show, after the show. The experience strengthens not just families, but your community and a society. It's my why. It's my Simon Sinek why I do what I do. Holly read a little bit about me. For those that don't know or are just entering the room, I'm an award-winning producer, a director and educator with over 25 years of professional experience in the theater. My Broadway credits producing and investing include A Beautiful Noise. You've heard some of these. The Neil Diamond musical, we're very proud of it, just opened in the fall, and other shows that are coming on their way to Broadway. And I'm lead producing the New York bound Spells of the Sea, which just had a run last month, and Haven't Come Home. I've earned 2 degrees in theater. Where's my friend from Boston? Yay, Emerson College is where I got my BFA in acting, and I have a master's degree in theater. And I've worked at Walt Disney World Sundance Film Festival and the Kennedy Center, and I have taught at 3 universities. So welcome to the masterclass. Here we go. What may be even more interesting to you is my connection with Broadway. Since 2020, I worked closely with 2-time Tony Award-winning Broadway producer Ken Davenport. If you know Ken, will you put that in the chat? Yeah, I know Ken. No, I've never heard of him. Yeah, we're best buds. I love his shows. Whatever. Let me know if you know Ken. I feel very blessed and grateful for the opportunity I've had to work with Ken. I met him during the pandemic when Broadway was closed. So I had the unique ability to be able to be in his world with no other distractions. I worked as a private coaching client, and then was a founding member of Next Stage. Some Next Stage folks are here, and also a founding member of the Elite program. So a lot of what I've learned about Broadway and the opportunities I've had are thanks to Ken, and I'd like to always give him a shout out. Okay, how do we find the perfect producer for your project? The first thing we need to do is to know your producers. Here are 8 up and coming and producing producers on Broadway. Do you know them? Do you know 1? Do you know 2? Do you know 8? Some of you say, okay, you know, if you know them, put them in the chat. Maybe you know Miranda, maybe you know Ananth, Rashad, Alex, Sammy, Tamar, JJ, Eric. If you know them, put them in the chat. More importantly, what I want you to think about is who are your producers? Knowing the style and the genre that you are creating, who is the producer that would best help you get your piece to the stage, from page to stage? This is so key. I know all of these individuals. I have had interactions with all of them, with the exception of 1, with the exception of 2. Those other 2 I am watching. I have on my phone in a notes what I call Broadway targets. And that just means people that I constantly keep in contact with through social media and various interactions. This is my networking pool. These are the producers that I want to work with in various capacities. The first way to get the perfect producer for your project is to know your producer. I want you to take a few minutes. Will you take like 30 seconds and write down what producer you know that would be perfect for your project? Now, it can be pie in the sky. Maybe you want it to be Daryl Roth has always been a mentor of mine. Maybe it's Ken, maybe it's somebody else. Like, is it Cameron McIntosh? Like, maybe it's Andrew Lloyd Webber, who's both writer and producer. Like, who do you think would be perfect for your project? Take 30 seconds and write down who would be your perfect producer. Two more seconds. Great, that's 30. I had a generous count. I see some of you thinking and writing feverishly, and some of you are wondering who that might be. If the world of Broadway is not your goal, if your goal is to have something licensed and then produce across the country, and you're thinking more locally, great. Start to think about who are the producers in your area, who are the professional theaters, if it's not in your state, in your region. What about even the school theaters? What about the college programs? All of these individuals can be in your pool of producers that you want to talk to find the perfect producer for your project. These are the projects that I've worked on in the last 2 years. As a case study, I want to share with you how I connected with these current projects. I've made a list of the ways that I connected. I had a genuine connection with the lead producer. The show had potential, some forward motion. There was a proven product and a team. I had a personal connection with the creator. One of these projects I was asked to direct, and then after I directed it, I wanted to take the next step and produce it. One of them has subject matter that's very personal to me. And one of them I invested in based on a personal relationship, a connection with another producer. That one has an asterisk, because I will tell you that production, and I can name it, it was Kinky Boots off Broadway. I was brought in with another producer, and I invested solely on a personal relationship. And while a personal relationship is a driving factor as you connect with the perfect producer for your project, I will say in this case, I turned a blind eye to the numbers, the hard numbers, the questions I had in my mind, and I ended up losing money on this investment. And so I add the caveat that you need to have a personal connection, and we'll talk about how we make those connections, but there's also sound wisdom in finding the right producer for your project. Okay, these are the number of shows that I connected with because of a personal connection. I love case studies, so we're going to talk about a lot of case studies. Maybe you will see yourself in one of these. There are good examples and less good examples, and I hope we can learn from all of them. So this was a message I got December 27th, 2022 through LinkedIn. I welcome DMs, messages. This one started out, "Hi, Megan." Now, Holly introduced me correctly as Megan Ann. That's how I go, how I refer to myself in a professional situation. So, "Hi, Megan," felt less personal to me, but okay. Here's the title, "Interesting New Musical Seeking Partner Like You." That's fine. It also sounds pretty generic. It goes on to say, "We're looking to develop this show." The part that I want to point out is, can you see that this is the one part of the screen, and this is the next part of the screen, and this is the next part of the screen, and then there is this part of the screen. This message, my friends, went way like up. You know, you talk about something being above the fold. I was going up and scrolling it up. By this point, I was like, you may be a wonderful friend, but I don't know who you are, and this is too much information. So one of the takeaways as we develop these relationships is to nurture relationship and to keep it brief, at least initially. I got the same message almost verbatim in my website and in my email. So You know what? We all may be like guilty of this. Okay. No shame, just a learning experience, right? So this is an email I got in December, sounded very similar. And then also in January. I don't know if any of you know this person. I'm sure they're a lovely human. Let me contrast this with a different experience. I got this message in May of 2021, so even before this. And I also got, and it says, Dear Megan Ann, great. And it says in the subject matter, Love is Blonde by, and the name. So I knew that this was, of all the different hats that I'm wearing in this particular moment, this was related to theater. Great. Dear Megan Ann, I'm delighted to connect with you and share my project. Well, if they're delighted, I'm delighted. Like, this is already exciting. We're talking about tone here, friends. I'm delighted to connect with you and share my project, the play Love is Blonde, based on the novel Blonde by Joyce Carol Oates. I see from your Instagram profile that you are a producer, director, mother, and fantastic hostess. Friends, everybody loves to be flattered. Like, it just is a wonderful sauce, right? Obviously, genuinely, I was posting a lot about, I have another business where I produce parties. And so it was nice that she was acknowledging this hostess part of me. As a playwright based in New York, but originally from Italy, I appreciate great food and a special way of presenting it with love, care, and a bit of fashion. She's already finding a way for us to make a connection, right? Now, the next couple of paragraphs talk about her show, talk about how she actually had funding from the show from Italy, talked about what she was doing next. I'm putting together a production team of women, very specific. For more information, here is a website. And then she listed a crowdfunding, her Forbes article, lots of information that I could explore on my own. Then she followed up with this message in Instagram. Hello, Ms. Rasmussen. Nice to meet you. I visited your website. What I hope we can pull out of this is the idea of how you make a personal connection, even if you don't know them. Thinking about who your audience is, how you present yourself with a warm tone, and not giving too much information at the first meeting. I mean, it's like if you met somebody, well, I've been guilty of this, being on the plane and then you want to tell them your whole life story. Okay, maybe that's one example. But when you're meeting someone on the street, or if you're trying to strike up a professional relationship, please be mindful of people's time. That's one of my encouragements. Okay, here's another example, a winning example. Brief is best, be inviting. This is Mark Levine. He is the lead producer. He wrote to me in February. Hi, Megan. Okay, names aside. Nice to connect on here. I wanted to see if you'd be interested in hearing about my new musical, Fly More Than You Fall, a show that I discovered when it was performed a few years ago at Utah Valley University. Now, Mark and I have spoken because his email or his invitation in LinkedIn was so intriguing. I don't know if he researched and knew that I actually saw this show at Utah Valley University. I don't know if he connected that we were in Utah or that I was formerly on the faculty at Utah Valley University. Whatever it was, I was drawn in, and it's brief. And even if he didn't know that I knew the show, there's a Deseret News, which is our local paper article, helps us get right there. He asked a question, let me know if you can schedule time to chat about it. I did schedule time and reach out to him, and we had a nice conversation. So as we talk about finding your right producer, I wanted to give you examples of how you can make natural connections. Is this helpful? Yes, thumbs up. Hopefully it's helpful. Okay, good, great, thanks. The other thing that I thought was fantastic, I have done the deep dive into your community. MusicalWriters.com is amazing. This academy is fantastic. So I looked at this article, which I wanted to reference back. Social media skills. What are the 3 keys? Don't just consume. What a great reminder for all of us. Connect. Don't just sell, serve. Don't just orate, relate. And then I added mine in there. Nurture relationships. Be a human. I think all of us can feel when there is a mass-produced email to every producer that you can find. The chances of success, I mean, just logically speaking, are less than if you make a personal connection. I know a producer who said, it's really easy for me to find investors. I just have a spreadsheet of different people who've invested in different shows, and I've tagged them all. And when it comes time to do a show, I say, oh, are you a blank, 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 blank? Are you a male identifying cat lover from Brooklyn who likes this? And then he said, I pull up and say, because you like this show, maybe you would be interested in investing in this. So it's about keeping it real, knowing your audience, and also keeping it brief. Okay, how to find the perfect producer for your project. Know your producers, make a personal connection, be prepared. What do I mean about be prepared? Well, let's do this first. Of all the reasons I chose to invest in or produce these shows in the last 2 years, two of those reasons are the shows had shown potential, had some forward motion, and had a proven product and or team. This is the cautionary tale, my friends. This is the cautionary tale, but I think it's important, and that's why I want to bring it up. So I had a project. I was connected with from another producer to this producer, Cody Lawson. Cody is a fantastic human. So I sent an email to him. We connected, had a great conversation, and he said, great, send me the materials. Perfect. Yay. Like, this is going to happen. We all know that feeling of like talking with an investor or a producer, and you feel like, oh, this is going to be great. So I sent him the materials. He said he added it to the queue on Kindle. And then he says, this is September 24th, 2020. One very minor note that was shared with me ages ago is that I suggest other authors to put in the standard musical format. When readers at theaters, et cetera, have a huge pile of scripts to go through, he says, something as simple as a non-standard formatting can be the thing that gets them stop reading and move on to the next. I really appreciated his advice, very kindly said. I responded with like, absolutely. I will get back with the writers. We will make the necessary adjustments. I did so really quickly, like within 2 weeks, and I sent it to him. Okay, friends, October 2nd of that same year, it still looks a bit off. Margins, colons after character names, etc. I can read it fine, but I think back to and remember, this is a very busy producer and he's taking time to like educate me, right? I think back to when I worked at CTG and the readers there were assigned 25 scripts a week to read, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. And in reality, we would find excuses not to read 20 of them and only read 5. So I'm always trying to think in terms of how I get my show to be one of those 5. But first, how I avoid my show being one of the 20 that are discarded at a quick glance. Wow. So then he sent me the template and he said, if your writers are writing in fun, he was so gracious. Here's the cautionary tale. I have not responded to him. But every cautionary tale has a silver lining. And Holly's smiling. I know she knows the story because this is where my story and Holly's stories connect. I frantically called a producing friend and I was like, who knows how to format a script? I don't know how to format a script. How do I find someone to format a script? And they said, call Holly. Holly took the project. She formatted it beautifully. It's really, really ready to go. Long story short, we're in the middle of a rewrite. We just did a show. We're doing rewrites again. I wasn't prepared to give the product to the producer when I had the opportunity. The cautionary tale silver lining is because of that, I was able to meet Holly, and I hope that I'll be able to give this to Cody again sometime. But the takeaway, be prepared. How to find the perfect producer for your project, know your producers, make a personal connection, be prepared. Okay, let's talk about 3 keys to getting your show produced. Okay, these 2 dovetail. It's all about production, or it's all about being prepared. So here is the first one is having prepared materials. I'm going to call them out for you right now. Use resources around you and build your business of show business. Let's dive deep. Okay, this is we're all friends. I want to be careful with what's proprietary. These are various show pitch decks that were shared with me. Some of them are shows that have had a production on Broadway and then are touring or doing other things. Some of them are works that are in progress, so I'll try to be more respectful of the specifics of those. What I want you to see is to pick it in broad strokes, like what is the aesthetic that you're seeing? How, as a reader, does the play land for you, like emotionally and also like organizationally? Let me show some examples of these prepared materials. These are all pitch decks. Okay, has anyone seen POTUS? If you have, please, no, shaking your heads, no, okay. I think this title says it all. POTUS are behind every great beep are 7 women trying to keep him alive. What I thought was interesting about this, and the reason I'm sharing with it, is this is really, look at the colors, the pinks, the red. There's actually a really great article on color and fonts in the musical writers world, right? Yes, some of you have seen it. Okay, so you can see these electric pink, almost red, like red. The pink is playing to the women, the female identifying characters in this piece. It's really in your face. I mean, like there's lips and the White House is, I mean, there's a lot to this. Maybe not my taste, but let's talk about how aesthetically done it was. Here's this like presidential feel. What are some of the elements that were important? They talk about the creative teams, of course, Susan Stroman, a huge pull. In this particular pitch deck, because of where it was in its development, they included financial numbers. Yours may or may not, depending on what stage you're in. That's okay. But just know when it comes time that that's kind of those will be some of the materials that you would want to include. Financial materials, also co-producer entitlement terms. I thought this was really great, the way that they showed the producing partners. Isn't that catchy visually? Spotco, Vivacity, Foresight, a way of showing social proof that there are a lot of people who are engaging in this product, right? Then I also included the thank you because it bookended the opening and the closing. Very dramatic. Like it or hate it, love it, loathe it, it can get your attention. Here's another one. This is the pitch deck for Thoughts of a Colored Man. This is probably one of my favorite pitch decks I've ever seen. First page, Thoughts of a Colored Man. That image is so intriguing. The middle is second image in this piece. Look at that white space or black space. Look at the margins. Look at how we're breathing. All we ever wanted to do was be ourselves, to live. I'm instantly pulled in because of the emphasis on the simplicity. I think it's so beautifully done. The image to the far right shows some description of the piece as we lead into it. And then here are some different formats of the information, a production history. How lovely to have a production photo like that. And I love the lines that are sweeping up from left to right. This is a story about the playwright, like his statement. And I actually read an article today about why do we ask writers to write artistic statements? Our work should stand for themselves. Okay, that's great. And sometimes for someone who doesn't know your work, it's nice to hear why it was important to you. And if this doesn't fit for you, great. But I loved how Keenan Scott II did this. Again, the same idea on the far right, but with different colors, still very engaging. And then look at this slice of pink. This is our director. I love how they showcase their reviews. This is an example of more pink from the costume director. We have some images from our costumer and then more information page. Another example. This is a piece that is currently in development. So the first cover page really gets your attention and so do the next pages. But for sake of just privacy, I've moved those over to the side. What I wanted to show you is the table of contents and how this was created in the top right-hand corner, left-hand corner. Also the synopsis. You know, I gave my friend who sent me a message in Instagram a hard time for having so much information. There is a place for it. We want to know the synopsis of the show. So this is well done. I like the change in the background colors or some other like engaging photos. I loved having this target audience. As a potential investor, I was like, oh, they know exactly who their play is for. Look at how these Venn diagram sections overlap. We know that producing a play is made successful when you have overlapping audiences. I also love the reference to the market, what Broadway is doing. And check this out, the tent pole themes, just helping your investors see what your show is about. Loved it. Okay, we've talked about how to find the perfect producer for your project, 3 keys to getting your work produced. And we're going to talk about the top 5 things investors look for. Let's do this. Oops, I think It jumped back. Well, look, this will be a review in fast speed. Here's another example. I just wanted to show you that in all of a lot of those shows that you saw were on Broadway, had Broadway ad agencies working for them. This is my show. This is what we were able to create. I'm really proud of it. This is title art that I didn't create, but we used quotes from people that were involved in the process. I really wanted to put my show in the context of other family theater shows. Some social proofing with an article from Forbes. This is a video about me. What next is always important, and that's part of your production timeline. And then as you're creating your materials, I love this idea. What's the opportunity? Calling in and making an ask, even in your materials. I want you to invest because, or we are looking for family investors who are passionate about sharing this inspiring story of courage, discovery, and resilience. And then I tease out that there's preferred rate of return. And if you're interested in learning more, let me know. Okay. Prepared materials. I hope that those case studies are helpful. The next thing you can do as part of our 3 keys to getting your works produced is use resources around you. What do I mean by that? Case study. This is a show that I'm lead producing called Heaven Come Home. The writers are here, Justin Payne and Danny Cleveland. And when we were deciding where we wanted to have the first reading, the first workshop production of this, Justin came to me as the producer and said, hey, I've talked to my former faculty member at a different university who's now at University of Nebraska, Omaha, which is where we did the show. And he said they're really excited about new play development and want us to come and have a partnership. When I talk about the resources, when I offer to you the resources to look around at what is close by and those resources, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about areas where you are, which wouldn't require moving across the country, but could offer support to you in the development. Now we're going to do this 30-second activity again, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think about what are the resources around you that could help you produce your show. Some thoughts to think about are you an alumni? Where did you go to school? Where do you go to church? Do you have any civic responsibilities? Is there any universities or, my goodness, junior high, elementary schools around you? I'm going to give you 20 seconds this time to write down local resources you have. 20 seconds, ready, go. Okay, 2 more seconds. Great. Ruth, you said you lost sound. Can you hear me now? Judy can hear me. Okay. Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Ruth. For those who are just joining us, we're talking about ways to get your show produced, and we just brainstormed what are the local resources you have. The example I used was this show, Heaven Come Home, that I'm lead producing, that we had a workshop of at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. It was actually a terrific experience, and we were able to join a lot of resources to make it happen. I know we'll have a question and answer, and I know there's been some questions about the cost of enhancements. So as it's helpful, knowing that every project is different, I just wanted to share that this enhancement as a producer cost me between $10,000 and $15,000. And that was for a large cast. It adds up really fast. We also did take time in the rehearsal studio to record one of our numbers. So I rolled that in there, and then also the cost of traveling as a producer. I'm learning that it really makes a lot of sense to work in the communities you are. If nothing else, it helps save some money. Okay, talking about using resources. These are some production photos from the show that I just produced last month called Spells of the Sea. And we did it in partnership with Metro Theater Company in St. Louis, Missouri. Any Missourians in the town, or Chicago, Illinois, maybe? When we talk about local resources, first of all, I wanted to just call out that the reason I was connected with this theater is because I've worked in the industry, specifically theater for young audiences, for over 25 years. So I knew the artistic director, I knew of the managing director, I knew of the former artistic director. And I mention that because as you're thinking and making your list of where you can go to get your show produced, think about all of the colleagues that you've shared space with in the last decades and a half. Really, those connections can be important as you start to look for a place to have your show produced. So Metro Theater Company, we were able to use the enhancement. I paid about 1/3 of the enhancement. My enhancement was about 1/3 of the total budget. One of the things that we were able to take away from this experience were these beautiful production photos. Aren't they lovely? Yeah, thanks for the head nods. They had on-staff photographer who were really able to capture the essence of it. They had a really strong design team. I'll be candid. I was connected with this theater through another colleague. If I had known what I knew, would I have chosen this theater again? We lucked out. They had such strong scenic elements. I mean, this ship is just beautiful. A pirate ship that comes together in 3 different ways. I did, as part of my enhancement, bring in a costume designer from New York. So all these costumes are done by Cynthia Nordstrom. This lower right-hand one I wanted to call special attention to. She was our mermaid. And Cynthia, interestingly, has done Disney's mermaids, both on stage and Disney's on ice, like Little Mermaid. And she was like, Megan Ann, we're going to make sure your mermaid is anything but what the Disney mermaid is. And I think she did a lovely job. So this is all case studies as part of using the resources that are available. Let's also talk about building your business of show business. This is one of the keys to getting your works produced. I know you have a certain set of skills, and I have a certain set of skills. I actually tried writing a play once upon a time, about my son who has some developmental delays. It wasn't great. It didn't do well at all. It's sitting on a shelf someplace else. And it ended up being more like a one act. I'm not a writer. And I know it's easy to be like, I'm not a producer, I need a producer. But I hope that these will at least open your minds to what it will take, what steps you can take to help get your show produced. And part of that is building the business of show business. And I'll mention briefly here that what that entails in my experience is like bank accounts and also legal fees, being able to set up your entity to be able to receive money from investors and be able to like move forward with paperwork to engage those investors. Now, some of you may be like, oh yeah, Megan Ann, I got this, well, I'm way down the road. Great. I mentioned to those who are just getting started, that alone could be a whole session. I'm not going to go much more into that, but just know that part of getting your work produced is having your ducks in the row. And part of that is knowing what legal paperwork you have to have in place and bank accounts to have set up. Okay, I'm going to give you a bonus because the first one kind of overlapped. So one of the keys to get your work produced is D, a customer relations manager, a CRM system. Does anyone have a CRM system that they use for their playmaking? Anyone? What is a CRM? Let's talk about that. A CRM is a way that you can track leads. That sounds so salesy. Salesy sounds so business, so corporate. Friends, we are in the business of show business. And part of being able to engage others is to keep notes and track those engagements. A CRM, a customer relations manager, is a wonderful way to keep track of things. Nutshell is one that actually Cody Lawson and I know other producers use. It's a way to write down who you've talked to, what they said, what your follow-up steps are, and any notes that may relate to when you're talking to them again. I can't emphasize this enough. If there's nothing you take away from today, maybe it will be that you investigate a customer service, a CRM, a customer service relationship manager. And then this key, the follow-up, the follow-up, the follow-up. I have been waiting to share this with you. I've been waiting to share this with any active listeners because I have people pitch me projects, friends, and they will say, will you do this? Will you read this? Will you review my pitch deck? Will you a number of things? And I'll say, yes, I would love to be helpful. And then we're humans and life happens, and I may forget or something else comes up, and I never hear from that person again. And sometimes I want to say, please follow up. Often I say, hey, if you don't hear from me in a couple of weeks, will you please follow up with me? And guess what? The people that follow up get my money. I messed with someone because he kept following up with me, right? So follow up, follow up, follow up. And that relates to the CRM. As you're tracking, you can know when was the last time you talked about them, talk to them, what the next step was. I asked a very high profile artistic director of a theater, a regional theater, to watch my show, Spells of the Sea. And he said he would. I asked him to come. I was going to fly him out there. He couldn't come. Great. Will you watch the show? I'd love to watch the show. He was engaged at that point, engaged in the process of helping me. Great. So then I sent a follow-up. Hey, have you seen the show? No, I'm in England, but when I get back, I'll take a look at it. You bet I'm going to follow up because I have to practice what I preach. And the follow-up is really where the success is. The follow-up, the follow-up, the follow-up. I know it's not fun. I have yet to have somebody say, stop bothering me. I always try to be mindful and be respectful, but more times than not, people are grateful for the follow-up. I wish people followed up with me more. That's your bonus. Okay, 3 keys to getting your workshop produced: prepared materials, use your resources around you, build your business, and of course, our bonus. I also want to talk briefly about the 5 things that investors look for. Those things are MONEY, money. Your investors are investing you with their money. Now, I listed this. It sounds like we don't have sound, so I'm not going to play it. But this is the Jerry Maguire clip where it says, show me the money, right? Show me the money. I think investors can sometimes get a bad rap. Most producers are often investors, or if you're not an investor as a producer, I highly encourage you to be an investor because you will learn so much from the process of being a producer by being an investor. Yes, it's about money. Here's an easy acronym: money. Investors want you to be mindful with their dollars. What does that mean? They want to know that you have fiduciary stewardship, that you're smart with the money that they're giving you, right? How do you show that? By often communicating. There's more often than not, you can over communicate better than if you under communicate. What do I mean by that? People will be less turned off if you over communicate than if you under communicate. When you under communicate or you write not as frequently, then people start to get nervous. Oh, I haven't heard about that. What about that? When we were in the middle of our Spells of the Sea, I was sending things to my donors and investors as often as I could bundle 2 or 3 things together. Sometimes that was twice a week. Now, as things have slowed down, the pace of that has slowed down. but I work hard to communicate with my investors. I think this is something that's so overlooked. N, a natural shared aesthetic. I may or may not like the show that you produce, and you may or may not like the shows that I produce. When you're looking for an investor, find one that aligns with your aesthetic. How do you do that? Well, you can go to Playbill if you're looking for a Broadway show and look at the various investors, or you can go to your local theater and see who are the donors that are listed, or you can be in a space and talk about a show. Oh, I just saw this. Did you see this? Oh, I haven't seen that yet. Oh, I love this show. You start looking for natural connections of people that share a same aesthetic experience. You may think that investors are looking for experience in you. Not necessarily true. This E for experience is talking about the experience that you are creating for your investor. What are you doing for your investor to give them an experience that they can't have any other way? Are you inviting them to an opening night? Are you giving them access to a writer or a director? Are you helping them explore subject matter that they're really passionate about? Are you helping them understand the world of theater more? I think about this all the time. What does the investor want? You can ask them, or you can try to anticipate their needs. The E is for experience. And then the Y is for your passion. You've maybe heard this before. People invest in projects, but people invest in people, and they're investing in you. Okay, I'm looking at our time. Where we are on agenda. We've gone through how to find the perfect producer for your project, 3 keys to getting your work to produce, the top 5 things investors look for, money, and our fabulous acronym. I'm ready to go into the question and answer, but before we do, because I do love gifts, I want to give my gift to you. Are you okay if I give you a gift? I see Jody has her hand raised. All right, Jody, before we get to your question, here is my gift. You may know, as Holly said at the top of our time together, that I am host of the Broadway's Bit by Bit podcast. It's the only Broadway podcast that focuses on the investor-producer relationship. And I have an opportunity that I want to share with you. I have 3 spots left on Tuesday, this Tuesday, April 18th, to interview 3 playwrights. Now, let me see if I can get this working. I am going to put in, let's see, here we go. I'm going to put into the chat this link. Here is the link to sign up if you are interested in being one of these 3 playwrights that I will interview on the podcast this Tuesday. It is a $200 value. I would love it to be you. This is my thank you. This season, we are focusing on writers, and so I'm really excited to showcase real writers and real projects. The only qualifications are you have to have a finished script of whatever we're talking about, and being willing to share your story, which means being willing to share your story as a creator and also a bit about your story. So if this feels like the right fit to you, I would love to have you on the show. Again, I've got those 3 spots for this Tuesday, April 18th. It helps me be able to showcase writers, and I would love it to be you because you spent some time listening to me, and I hope that this has been helpful. So if that's interesting, you can click that link in the chat. Okay. I did get a couple questions in advance. So Judy, I'm going to honor these that came in and then we'll jump to you. One question we got in advance was, what tips do you have for self-licensing instead of self-producing? And I think this is a fabulous question. I don't know the answer of self-licensing, so I've contacted a very reputable source, and I will report back by Tuesday morning what that answer is and share it with this community. Holly, can I email that to you? That'd be great. Okay,
Absolutely.
great.
That'd be so
Thanks,
great.
thanks. Awesome. The other question we got in advance is investingbroadway.com legit and worth consideration? Okay, I thought this was a great question. So let me tell you that investingbroadway.com is actually this Broadway investing company or the Broadway Investor Club. And I share this because the owner or the principal is Jason Turchin, who I interviewed on the podcast. So if you want to know more about the Broadway Investing Club, one way you can learn is by listening to the podcast. But I will tell you that it is legit. They have invested in these following shows. That's quite a few. They've also been featured in those periodicals at the bottom of your screen. I know Jason, he is a forward thinker, and he's doing a lot to crack open the nut of Broadway. Why it relates especially to this group is that he just announced a new record label. And the whole purpose of this record label is to give new shows like yours the opportunity to be recorded. I think it's fascinating. So by all means, reach out to Jason. Tell him Megan Ann sent you if you do. I think he's a great human. Okay, so let's go back to some other questions. Judy, Holly, do you want to? Oh, you know what? There's one more. Hold on. This one I thought was really helpful. How much money do you think it requires to sway a theater with a great reputation to do an enhancement deal? This is assuming that the show is ready to go and well connected. And how common is it for theaters to request or require enhancement deals these days? There's a lot of parts to that question. I will tell you that in a large regional theater, some of the coastal regional theaters, you can expect anywhere from enhancements to be a deal to be anywhere from $750,000 up to $3 million. That's a lot of dollars. Mm-hmm. Are they required? No. Do they help? Yes. Can you enhance in lots of different ways? Yes. There can be in-kind enhancements. If you have someone that works with you and works with the show, that might be able to help the theater in some way. I think that's, there's just lots of different ways to do an enhancement. I don't know that theaters are requiring it, but it definitely sweetens the deal. When we approached Metro Theater Company, we knew that enhancement was part of it. And we actually engaged in a pretty intense, pretty detailed conversation about what this show would take at their theater, what they were used to, what this show would be, and line by line talk through what those dollars would mean. I will say, again, just speaking candidly, we did have one reviewer say that the tessitura, right, of what this theater was known for, a 2 or 3 person show, that Spells of the Sea pushed the tessitura by having 9. I thought that was interesting. Like sometimes enhancements have the liabilities, right? Like maybe it's not always what the theater is known for. Something to consider. Yeah. Holly, should we go to questions?
Yeah, that sounds great. We'll pull some from the chat, and then
great.
I'll try to cover some that maybe we're not taking care of. Jenny just asked, oh, there it went. Let me go back up. We're hoping to raise money for a staged reading. If someone wants a unit, so looking at investors, is there a standard percentage for investing at this point? Do you get anything for investing at this point?
Oh, great question. Okay, so let's break this down. So you're wanting to do a reading and you want to know what the units are for the investment. The best way to look at that, if you're in a reading, you're in an early stage of development, and this is what we call early money or front money. Oftentimes we entice investors who have a greater risk to get a greater percentage of the end product, right? So your question about units, you first would decide what are your units, and sometimes that's often based on what the overall budget will be. And if I hope you're not talking about like the budget for the reading, but more like the budget for the whole show. And in order to do that, you probably need to know what the production path is, but I don't want to make that too complicated. Let's say that your reading's going to be, well, do we want to talk in real terms? Is this person on the call or is it a shared in?
Yeah, Jenny, feel free to turn your mic on. And
yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Jenny. I just want to be
Hi.
the most helpful I can. Yeah, so
Okay.
You're doing a reading.
Well, we'd like to do a reading. And yeah, I mean, I guess we could plot out what we think a full production would cost. If that serves, I mean, obviously if this person wants to know what a unit would be, it would be for the future. So they'd want to.
So if you're
for the
reading,
future.
Is this like a reading at a university? How developed do you expect the reading to be?
This would be the very first time it would be on its feet. So this is a very early stage.
Okay, cool, great. Congratulations.
The music
I'm so excited for you.
the music is, we wouldn't even be doing all the music because the music's not fully written. We read like the whole script with 7 songs, maybe, 5 songs, something like that.
Awesome, great. There's lots of different types of reading in different stages. So thank you for clarifying it. I mean, the basic reading, of course, is that you get to in your living room with your friends, right? And you read it and that costs you nothing. But it sounds like you're going for the next stage, which is maybe you have a theater that's already agreed to do a reading. Sometimes they will loan you the theater. Some of the cost of the reading, if this is helpful, Jenny, is we like reverse engineer it. Actors are a consideration, any kind of designers, even if you're doing basic lights. Sometimes costs for the readings are like a music director, meaning if you're writing the music or somebody else is writing the music, I like to relieve my principals of that responsibility and have somebody else play it. It serves a couple of different purposes. One, they can hear that what you know to be true and be easy is not so, easy for somebody else. And also so that you can hear it without playing it at the same time. The best example I can give, Jenny, is at Heaven Come Home, that reading. And remind me, Holly, and I will send you a video, a very great video of that we can share with the group. It was a large cast, Jenny, and we had, I think we had 6 university students and probably 6 professional actors, right? And the whole thing cost us about $10,000. So if you're talking about $10,000, if you were talking to an investor and said, if they wanted to know what the units were, I think of the way I would approach it. My advice to you is to say to an investor, we are looking to do this reading. We're raising $10,000. Your investment would have like first priority as we go forward in the next stages of development. I think that's how I would best lay it out for them. They want to start talking about units, then they're going to want to know what the whole budget is, what the units are, and how much units they can buy, right? For example, the whole budget's $1.5 million. The units are 50,000. They can buy a unit, 2 units. Maybe it takes 3 units to be above the title. But for where you are, I would say to the investor, you're investing in us at this stage because you want to be part of the process going down the road. And we would be able to give you the first preferred rate of return when it comes time for that. But you won't know that until you get there. But I hope that would help them understand that a little bit. Is that helpful?
That is super helpful. Because you only need 4 actors, so that
yeah.
Yeah.
You probably could do it for 5. I mean, depending on where you are, right? $5,000 to $6,000, and even if it was just a couple $1,000, depending on your production. I hope you could find an investor that say, Jenny, I believe in you, and here's money that goes towards that.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So
I hope that's helpful. Thanks.
Totally. Thanks.
Yeah, Judy, you got your hand up. Do you want to ask a question?
Yes.
Hi, Judy. How are you?
Hi, Megan Ann. It's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. Long time since Palm Springs. Good to see you.
Yes. Okay, so this is kind of a tricky question because I don't want to name names, but one of the producers that you showed of the young producers to know did pitch night, and I participated in it.
Okay.
And they said they were interested in seeing my script, and I was very excited. So I sent the script over, and the next thing I knew, I got an email from that person advertising their services as a dramaturg.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right.
And saying, would love to help you get your lovely show to the next level. I'm now working with thus and such, and we've started thus and such, and here's the link to the website, and you can go and see what we can offer you. So basically it turned what I thought was going to be an opportunity for me into a sales pitch. But this person is, an established, recognized Broadway producer, award-winning Broadway producer, and I just didn't have the resources to take them up on their packages. So I just wrote a nice letter and email and said, well, thank you, but it's not something that I can do at this time. But it's a person I'd like to continue a relationship with, but I don't know how now. It's kind of put me in this position where, I don't know what to do.
Oh, that's a great question. Judy, what I'm hearing you asking is, how do you maintain this relationship with this award-winning producer without engaging in their dramaturgical services? And you know what, Judy, I know you. I know you're a lovely human. It is okay to reach out and ping them and like their post or comment on things or send them a note or it was great to see that your show just was produced or congratulations on the Tony nomination or, you're just continuing the dialogue and there's no harm in that. That's the nature of the business. I hope that they would receive your gracious, genuine praise, like just beautifully, right? And if your situation changes and you reach out and be like, I'd really like to work with you as a dramaturg, or I found another dramaturg and I've been able to redo my script. Could you take a look at it now? Chances are they'll probably send it right back to you and say, well, these are dramaturgical services, or just take that as more information, right? The more information is they're not in a position to be able to look at the script or dive into producing this at this point. That's okay. You know what else my advice would be, Judy? If it's not one of those emerging producers, find one of their associates. There's so many great ways to go onto social media and find who they follow, who they like, and then find some of the other producers that are working with them. Maybe there's somebody else that's been dying to do the piece that you've written and would jump at the chance to work with you.
Okay. Thank you. Good advice.
Yeah, keep it
Thank you,
going.
Megan
Keep the
Ann.
conversation going. You got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.
Okay, Ruth, you have a question?
I do. First of all, I want to thank you so much for what you've presented until now.
Oh, thanks, Ruth. It's a pleasure.
You kept it brief, but it was full of information. Okay, here's my question. I recently did a fundraiser and I have a fiscal sponsor. It's an organization that has helped me over the years when I was making films and so forth. And so it became a tax deduction for the investors, right? So, but I assume that when I get to a higher level of needing greater amount of investment, that I'm not sure I can do it that way. I don't know, do you have experience using nonprofits that act as a fiscal sponsor? That's the first part of my question. Do you want me to hold the second part or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
And
I
the
got it.
second part is, I was forewarned by people who had been producing, this is my first time producing a musical and writing a musical. I've been a filmmaker, but I was forewarned by someone who said, be careful of how you give away your points, because he ended up making it to Broadway, but by that time he didn't own enough of the show to be able to make any managerial decisions. And he was basically voted out, like a hostile takeover. And so the show made it to Broadway for a short time. He couldn't fix it up. It was no longer his. And so how does one negotiate? At what point you actually start designating who gets how much, and how do you keep it all so they can keep the majority of the pie to make sure it's still yours?
Yeah, Ruth, those are great questions. First of all, congratulations on your successful film career and on this first musical. That's really exciting. What a great change of mediums. I'm looking forward to seeing what it is you produce. First, to your question about an investment versus a donation that would come as a not-for-profit or a fiscal sponsor. This is such an important distinction, and I'll give you an example of how it worked for us most recently at the theater. We did an enhancement with a not-for-profit theater. The theater itself is a not-for-profit entity. They can receive donations, right? I am a commercial producer. I'm a for-profit entity. I am not allowed by the SEC to receive a donation that would be tax deductible, right? So there is a distinction, and how do you manage those? Ruth, you need to be very careful. Now, I'm not attorney or financial advisor, but I would tell you, you could use fiscal sponsorship as for your a not-for-profit donation up until the point until you created like a commercial entity and then got other investors as a commercial entity, right? So the fiscal sponsor could help you at in Jenny's example, $10,000 to help you do a reading, great. But the second that you decide that you're going to reach out and could declare yourself an entity that is receiving investments, which all has to be documented with an attorney, that's when the change happens. Does that make sense?
Right. Because the money that they donate to the nonprofit, the nonprofit then turns around and gives to me, I report as personal income. I have to pay income tax on it. because it's, even if I can show what I spent it for, but it still becomes something that needs to have taxes paid on it at some point, right?
You have to be very careful with how it's structured. And I would tell you to seek out more advice from your CPA or your accountant. But I want to make sure I understand. So you are getting income from the not-for-profit donation to you, your entity? Like, have you created a business entity?
No, I haven't. I just have a special account, a bank account that I use only for that. But the money comes in my name to me, and then I, as a producer, I use it to hire arrangers and singers and studio time, whatever I need it for. So, and I show that as income, and I show, like, as if it's a business, I show how I use the expenditures to show I'm not taking money from me personally to use, I'm using it for the production, but I still have to, it's under my name, under my,
Your business entity, yeah.
1099, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, the difference.
But they get the benefit of having it as a tax deduction for them, which makes it attractive for them to give me money.
Is your entity a 501c3, Ruth?
The people who receive the money from me?
Your entity, the way that you're receiving that.
No.
Okay.
So it's a nonprofit giving me a financial grant or a amount of money for a project that they believe in, right?
Great.
But I have to declare it as personal income, which I do.
Okay, great. And all that is fine. That is totally separate than receiving other investments in your business. So that will have a timeline as far as that fiscal sponsorship continues to fund that project.
Right.
But the second that you start to take other investments, not donations, but investments in an entity, that's when it becomes separate, and you have to start recording and reporting to the SEC.
Thank you very much. That's a very important distinction. Yeah.
Yeah.
The second question was about points, giving points and giving away.
You know, my answer may be different than what you're thinking, Ruth, but this is my answer. Developing a show for Broadway takes a long time. It can take 3 to 8 years. And investors want to see that their money is being spent well. Now, the reality is, I just got an investor who donated $10,000. I can consume that $10,000 so fast. And I know that I need another 900,000, right? My answer is, one of the best ways to take care of your investors is to quickly move along the production path. That's my answer. Because you will continue to need money, and the more money that you need, the longer that it takes, the more chances that you have to give away more, and the more chances that you'll have in your friend's example of this hostile takeover, where investors are saying, we have given you money for 10 years. We no longer think that this is financially soluble, and we are going to reclaim this and try and divide any assets. And this is now kaput. Yeah, is that helpful? We could talk points, like we could talk about a one-to-one is the biggest, most generous way that you can share. I don't know if you talked about this, Holly, in the group or whatever. We can talk about the pool. So when people make an investment, as a producer, you want to give an enhancement or a kicker, right? So after a show recoups, and only after a show recoups, then all of the profits after that are split into 2 pools. One is the producer entity, and one are the investors. And as a producer, I want to incentivize the investors by giving them a kicker. And that comes out as a 1 for 1, a 1 for 2, 1 for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's a percentage of what I as an investor are giving a percentage of what I as a producer am giving my investor. But as you said, Ruth, if you're not careful, you can give away your share until you have nothing. So my one answer for you is be mindful of how much you're giving away. But the more important answer is make sure that you're working at a hastily pace to get your show produced so that you can quickly give whatever returns will be to your investors. Does that help?
Right. And so just as a part of that answer, though, do you give them anything on the way there, or do you?
No.
You don't promise?
No, the only time the investors get anything is after the show has recouped.
No, but I mean, how do you promise them ahead of time when you may end up needing twice as much as you think you needed, and then suddenly you've given most of your points away, and then suddenly
Yes.
you need another 500,000. Then what do you do?
Yes, Ruth, you're asking all the right questions because you don't want to water down that investment. Yes,
Right.
you have to be very mindful. That's why, to Jenny's question of like, well, how much points, what are the units? It's really helpful to know where your end goal is and work your way back. If I know that off Broadway is going to cost me anywhere from 1.5 million to 2 million, then I can work my way back and say my units are going to be 50,000. And if somebody takes one unit at 50,000, I'm going to give them a 1-for-4 kicker because I want to be able to save some of that 1-for-1. But if I have somebody come with me, Ruth, and say, I'm going to come in as a co-lead producer and invest $350,000, you betcha I'm going to give them a 1-for-1. So you just want to be, like you would with any business investment, mindful of the money you need. Now, I always aim higher. I believe my show is going to come in at 1.5. I'm aiming for 2 million because I think there'll be overage by the time we get there. And I've built my units as such, and I've told the investors as such. So here's another thing that I'll offer, Ruth. People are investing in you because yes, they want an investment return. But the reality is people who are investing in this business know how risky it is, know that 1 in 5 actually return. They know that. They're investing in you. Now, they're not going to keep investing and they want to be mindful of their investment. They don't want it to be watered down, but they know that the risk, they have to. They sign the paper. Your attorney is going to say, this is risky. This is so risky. And they have to sign their name to that, right? So they know the risk in ahead of time. They know the chances of getting a return is slim. What they want to see in you is that you're moving it along. This goes also back to the idea of the experience. They're buying an experience, Ruth. For $10,000, Jenny, for $10,000 for your reading, they want to see that something that they feel passionate about, this script, this message is being shared with the world. That's the experience you're creating for them, and that's what they're buying.
Yeah, and I would say too, you don't have to give a kick on those lower levels. You know, that's really, at least for our most recent production, the investors that we were offering these kicks to was if they were coming in at a higher level, and that was to incentivize them, you know, to come in at a higher level. But we had several investors that didn't get, you know, the 1-for-1 or 1-for-2, or I mean, they didn't get an entitlement with that. They just came in as a straight investor, you know. So I think you do have to be judicious and slow to offering those perks. Be sure they're worth it.
I think Ruth brings up such a good point that we get so excited and we want to offer everything to everybody, including every financial return. But prudence is key, and knowing that this is a long game and being able to do that appropriately will help save it in the end. I saw that in the chat that Holly did a Kickstarter for 40 grand. Congrats, Holly. I think that's amazing. Where are you in your progress now?
Well, I'm trying to raise my hand but I screwed up my Zoom thing. So I'm just raising my hand like this.
That works.
So on the I have another question, but on the Kickstarter, oh my gosh. So what I actually did was I'm a pianist and a singer. And so I actually had some rich friends put together 2 salons.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I went and played, and I did it, you know, I had a sound system. I played along with tracks. I had a couple of guests appear, you know, people there singing. My friends were very generous and gave food, and, you know, it was a really beautiful evening on both of them. But and then I just pursued and raised $40,000. But I will say it nearly killed me. So that's that part. But the second part is, and thank you so much, Megan Ann. And I feel overwhelmed because I am straight ahead musician. I know nothing about business. This is my first Broadway show, although I've been a musician my whole life. I was the songwriter for the Barney TV show for a long time. So I've had a lot of fun things. This is my first Broadway show, but I am at a point, I've got a really great director and a really great, I have Paul Bogave. I don't know if you know him from Elton John. He did music for Aida. he got a Grammy or an Academy Award for the film version of Chicago. I mean, he's fantastic. Attached to my show, which is super exciting. And Gabriel Barry also was recommended by Paul. Fabulous director who brings new musicals to life and tries to get them, and they're being very, very helpful. But I feel overwhelmed by the business aspect, and I'm just wondering, is there a way? And I'm also writing 2 more shows now, so I feel like I just don't have the wherewithal to be able to do this business part. And is that next step then the producer? Is that what I do? I need to find someone like you who's can take over the business part, because just even listening to it, I feel like crying.
Oh, Holly, if I have overwhelmed you, then I haven't done my job. I hope I can inspire you.
No, it's been really wonderful, but I just feel like I don't know how to do this stuff, you know?
Sure.
And I have no financial background at all. And I know everything on Broadway revolves, I mean, you have to have the product, of course, but everything revolves around the money. And oh my gosh, you know, I feel like I have everything in place, except I don't really, I feel like I can't go to that next step of getting the money together. I have 4 women who formed a team to fundraise for me.
Yeah. Holly, I'll tell you, I'm hearing you talk about all the things that the learning curve. This is similar to Ruth coming from film. You're coming from television. You have a talent. You were able to convince people in this room, in these salons, with lots of hard work and a team of 4 women to help raise money for you, that you have something that needs to be shared. So bravo, like acknowledge where you are now. You've done what a lot of people only sit around and think about doing. You've already done. So kudos for where you are right there. What are your next steps? There are 2 things that I would encourage you to do. One is stay involved with communities like this. We need communities like this. Everyone, including myself. I have a business coach. I have a producing coach. I have 3 calls a week where I keep accountable to the people in my group, because you need this energy. It is a long haul. We're talking 3 to 8 years. So you're going to need to nourish your creative spirit while you're going along this process. Yes, to answer your question, you can hire a producer, or you can hire a general manager, a theater general manager. And having been through this process and where I am now, if you know that Broadway is your goal, I would look at various Broadway GMs depending on what stage you're at. They can be expensive. They can be up to $2,500 a month, but you may not need that yet. I don't know your project well enough. I'm happy to talk about it, but you'll need to make sure that you have a reading of it, that you have captured. There was a question in the chat about songs. Ruth, I think this was your question. Did every song in the musical have to be arranged ahead of time? Holly, wherever you are, like, you have a lot of work to do, no matter how much money you've raised, right? You're going to pace yourself. You're going to take the next steps in that production, the path of production. And if you need someone to help you, like, talk through what that would be, look at this group, look at Holly. I know she's done it. I'm happy to help when I can. I'm happy to make recommendations for general managers. You're not alone. That's what I want to say to you. You're not alone. You've got a great community here, and you're taking those steps, and it is one step at a time, and you'll get there. I believe that.
Well, I may take you up on asking about the general manager, because it sounds like that's really what I feel like I need right now, someone to take over that aspect of it. It's just not my expertise, and we're really poised on the brink right now. You know, I've got a script over at Good Speed.
Oh, fabulous. Look at you.
Oh, I'm so
Congrats.
excited, but I'm scared because I don't know what to do next, you know?
Yeah, of all the feelings to feel, be excited, be daunted, but scared. Let's get that one in the back and let the other excitements come to the forefront. The other thing I will shed light on, Holly, for you, is that those group of 4 women that are raising money for you, any one of them, it sounds like, has the skills to be a GM for you. It doesn't have to necessarily at this stage be someone who has had theatrical experience. If you have someone who's really good at marketing, if you have someone that's really good at finance or understand business, and they're willing to invest in you and your time, you know, I see the light bulbs going off. You can use those resources, right? I mean, Goodspeed would be a fabulous producing partner. And we'll take that step when we get to it. But maybe there's people, I know there's people around you right now that could help you take some of the load off, so that you can write your other shows and take the necessary steps to get where you want to get.
That is a fabulous suggestion.
Good, good. Of course, of course.
Yay.
Yes. Is it Liz?
Hi, it's
Yes,
me.
we have time for one more question. So Liz, I'll let you be the last one and then we'll wrap it up. We want to be respectful of Megan Ann's time.
Absolutely. It's Lise. And
Lise.
it's okay. I just wanted to say first, thank you for all the great information. Just a question about the producer side. If you have interest from a producer, somebody who you don't have a contract with, but somebody who's been ushering the show and, you know, excited to lift and help in ways that they can. One, is it like, should I stop and say, okay, I've got my producer, or because I see so many shows that have different producers at different, like above the line, that's Broadway, but just in general,
Yeah.
At what level of producers should I be looking, you know, or should I just amass my team and kind of stop? Thanks.
My first thought, Lise, was never stop, and no one will love your show as much as you love it. No one, no producer, no general manager, nobody will be as passionate about your show as you are. Be grateful that people that have surrounded themselves and raised their hand to be a part of it. They're excited about the journey. They're excited to learn more about the process. But you will, as you've astutely noted, you will need folks along the road at different stages to pass that torch. So you were asking about like above the title producers and like other investors. My quick answer is that will come. I'll give you a quick, if this is helpful. I worked on a Broadway show that had a $20 million capitalization budget, okay? So the people who were above the title were contributing anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million to $2 million to get that above the title title. Now you may not be thinking about that, but that is, take those same numbers and take off a couple of zeros, right? As you're producing, wherever you are, who are your lead producers? That's often associated with the amount of time or money that they're putting into the project, right? But you always need other producers that can be producers in kind or incremental producers. I have 10,000, 1250, you know, smaller producers, but you get enough of the smaller producers and that's a big chunk of money. So I hope that answers your question. I heard you ask, should I stop looking for producers? And my answer would be never stop, but also pace yourself, right? Know what you need for the next step. And then always be looking for those producers that can help you get there. Is that helpful?
Very. Thank you for your help.
Yeah, you bet, you bet. Holly, can I go back to screen share as we wrap up?
Yeah, for sure. Go for it.
In review, friends, we talked about how to find the perfect producer for your project. Know your producer, make a personal connection, be prepared. We talked about the 3 keys to getting your work produced, your prepared materials, using the resources around you, and building your business of show business. And the bonus was looking for customer service manager that you can use for a producer that we just talked about, for other investors down the road, for people who you want to read your script. All of this you can manage in a customer service manager. The top 5 things investors look for, and this is my experience talking to a lot of investors. I've raised almost $500,000 for different projects and engaged with a lot of producers. I will tell you, it's like reps, rinse and repeat. You will get better at asking for money. Holly, I heard you say it almost killed you. I understand that. Guess what? You'll get better. You'll build the capacity. You'll be able to ask more and ask more frequently and ask with more ease and have a better close and return the more that you do that. Investors look for, how are you mindful with my money? Are you communicating with me? Do we have a shared aesthetic? What is the experience you're creating for your investor? And remember that they invest in you and your passion. We also talked about my thank you. I saw some of you signed up. I'm glad to have you. My wish for you coming full circle is this, that you would be in that space where you have people on their feet, excited to hear your story, excited to hear what you have to share with the world.